Hello, my name is Gwen, and today is Friday, June the 16th, 2017, and it's about 1:15 p.m. Today I'm going to talk about the Bill Cosby situation, and I got a little Word document that's outlined and not a big outline. And the jury hasn't come back yet. They were deadlocked yesterday, and as far as I know, they haven't reached another decision. They were sent back in to come out with the decision. But I want to give my thoughts on it, regardless of the decision. I don't believe Bill Cosby is guilty. They might decide he is, but it'll be a bad decision because, in fact, I don't believe he's guilty. And the reason why I was deadlocked is because it takes a while and a lot of mental acrobatics to mess over somebody and rationalize it. That's why it took a while for them to. That's why it's taken a while because it takes a long time to screw somebody over. You got to go through some mental maneuvers there to make yourself figure out how to do it, and so that takes a minute. Now, the reason why I'm saying that he's not guilty is because, among other things, we're using today's standards for yesterday's actions. That is, things have changed now. We don't do the same things that we used to back then. For example, you remember a long time ago in the 60s and 70s and even in the 80s, they had these cartoons on TV that little kids used to watch in the 60s, like Popeye and Bluto. Okay, and Pepe Le Pew, the little skunk that's on Warner Brothers. What I'm saying is that on Popeye and Bluto, for example, Bluto used to chase olive oil, and that was considered proper behavior because he would be chasing her, trying to catch her, and have his way with her. He would be forcing himself on her. Today's standards, that's sexual harassment. Back then, it wasn't. That was considered an ardent male trying to be with a female. Back then, men were supposed to chase females and pursue them relentlessly, and that was called high romance. Really, that was high romance when a man would basically impose his will on you and keep messing with you, and nobody would help you because that was romantic. That was considered romantic. And you can look at the old movies like for example, Gone with the Wind, and some of the old books, all of those. That was high romance. There was this phrase where they were saying these romantic things like your eyes say, your mouth says no, but your eyes say yes. And it was considered romantic to keep pursuing a female. And if you catch her and she lives through it, it was considered high romance. So that was yesterday's standards. Now, today's standard, we know better than to keep pursuing. We know that you can ask once and not, and that you can ask a female out or ask a person out once, but you can't pursue because that's harassment. And this was today's standards are post Anita Hill and Clarence Thomas, Bill Clinton, and all of those. So excuse me, today's standard is different than yesterday's. Yesterday you were supposed to pursue and it was high romance and it was encouraged and it was a societal norm. When a man pursued a female relentlessly, despite her saying clearly she does not want any part of him, if he kept going and kept at her and all of that, she had no recourse because it was not considered a bad thing. It was not considered a crime or even against the social norm. It was considered normal to keep pursuing a female. That's an example of the difference between this today's standard and yesterday's standard. So 20 or 30 years later, 40 years later, 50 years later, you gotta using today's standards to judge a yesterday action, and that's not quite fair. So in those days, though, well, first off, Bill Cosby has already addressed his infidelity. He has never made a secret of his infidelity. So I do believe that he really did possibly have sex with those women or whatever else, but he was under the impression it was consensual at the time. He has talked about his infidelity in books and in speeches. Even during his fatherhood tour that he had a book, I think he had a book called Fatherhood, and he had a tour and he was speaking on it because that was part of what he was doing, and he admitted it. He talked about his infidelity, and even when asked about how his wife is still married to him, and he would say immediately that she was a very patient, loving woman, and he wouldn't survive without her. And he addressed it. There's never been a secret about him um, um, messing with other women. But, and this is where it comes in, where you might have all these 89, you might have 2 million. I don't care how many. First off, if you get into somebody's dressing room, it's because you wrestled your way there. You got into this man's dressing room because you fought your way to get in there. That's an intimate, private place. That's the equivalent of a bedroom. If you got somewhere to be alone with the performer, and I'm not limiting it to performers, but a performer is a good example. But so it is with athletes, televangelists, anybody that's in the public eye that has a private dressing room in any field. And if you get there, that's because you were screened by their bodyguards, not bodyguards, but door people. They have people that screen you before you get in there, and they okay you to be in there. I'm going to tell a story and tell you how it works and how it worked back then. And I'm going to use the entertainment industry as an example, but it's also the same for televangelists and anybody that goes on tour. And so I'm going to preface it with this. When we were kids, and I'm talking about 10, 11, 12 years old and up, we had the run of our convention center in our city because we lived blocks from it, a few blocks from it, and so we knew every way to sneak in the building and sneak into any place we wanted to. We didn't even pay for concerts because we always had a way to get in there as kids. Little 10-year-olds, 10, 11, 12, 13, and we would get into the concert, not only get into the concert, we would get in the staging area. Now we didn't go into the private dressing rooms where they would get dressed and get ready to perform. We wasn't in that dressing room, but we would be sitting in the staging areas where the performers would get ready to go on stage, or in the back room where back area that's behind the stage. Okay, we will be sitting around there. We owned the place. We looked like we owned the place, and everybody knew we owned the place. We were back there with rare bands like Rare Earth, the Silvers. What else did we do? The Whispers, the OJs, the anybody we wanted to. We did not pay for concerts because we snuck in all the time, and we were backstage all the time. Every time somebody came in town, whether we wanted even liked them or not, we go see them, and we would go back there because we had nothing else to do with kids. So I also know that how it happens in the dressing rooms when there was their particular dressing rooms. If you wanted to get in there, you have to get through their door people or their screeners. These are people who basically protect the or the barrier between the performer and the people who are outside, and they even screen out the other performers and other people who are on stage. But the big room is like I want to not a green room, but a day room, but where all the performers that are going to go on stage and are coming back from stage would be at. It's like a staging area. And so that's where us as kids would be at. Like one time after Rare Earth came back, they had finished their part, and they were getting their drinks and food and stuff. And they looked over there at us. We just sitting there looking at him, Madeline. He said, "Who let these kids in?" And we just looked back at him. We stared him down. He just took a drink of his liquor and went home. Because we owned it. We looked at him like we owned it, and we stared him down. We didn't give a damn because we knew that y'all couldn't do nothing with us. We owned the place. And so we just a bunch of little girls, really, because we didn't have no boys with us. We were just a bunch of little old girls meddling, and just kids, little kids meddling, and that's what we did. But we also knew that backstage, in the other doors where the dressing rooms were where you weren't supposed to go because that's where the private places was. Nor that we want to go because we have no need to be in the private places. We wanted to look at the stars and medal, and that's what we did. So, what I'm saying is this: if you fought your way as a woman to a performance dressing room, it's because you absolutely wanted to be there and you have a tacit approval of any action that happens in there. Now, with Bill Cosby's story, they have a consistent line of what happened. They walk in, say, "I have a headache. Can you give me something?" And Bill Cosby is not a real doctor, even though he played one on TV. Excuse me. Modern women from the days of the Mickey Fins and the other little drugs that they would give people in their drinks knew not to take anything from anybody that they don't know. I mean, that's an old thing that you watch your drinks. They got what they call date rape drugs now, but that's been consistent for a few hundred years, that you don't take anything from somebody that you don't know unless you want to. But the code back then was apparently a code that they were told to say was their approval that they were down with whatever happened. And basically, the code was, "I got a headache. Do you have something?" And then he'll pull out whatever it was. And so things happened. But that was tacit approval in their minds at that time. What bothers me is that you're consenting then, but you're retracting your consent now. And that's not fair. Nobody in their right mind would take a damn pill that somebody handed them unless you're ready to play the game and you was screened before you even got in the dressing room and you were told, and I suspect you were told to say that to him, to let him know that that was a code. I swear I think that's their code word to do that. So the women that got in the dressing room fought their way in because it's not an easy thing. Their door is protected. They got somebody outside their door. Performers who get ready to go on stage have to get into a certain state of mind before they go on stage, and part of that is I want to call it a form of meditation, but it's really a form of mental preparation. And with that mental preparation, they go through a few steps. I'm not even mad at, I think it was Steve Harvey with all that little stupid stuff he said about what's happening and what he wants, before he gets on stage, and don't say nothing to him and da 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 da. That's because he's mentally preparing to perform. And performers have to do a certain bunch of mental things to prepare. And you have to have your private time to do it. For me, I used to work telephones for a federal agency, and I had good results, and I had high phone volume. I mean, the average person do about 60 phone calls. I could be up in the 120s. I think I topped out at about 170 once because I knew how to do it and how to talk and create happy customer service. But before I did that, I had to get mentally prepared to do it. And it takes a minute. It takes a while to get yourself in that mode, get your mind in there. What's the problem was when they would do that, when I would be doing that, sometimes my boss wants me to get on there early and I have to cuss her out. And I did, because I wouldn't get on there early because I wasn't mentally prepared. And even though you got phones in queue, I would have plugged the plug and knocked everybody out because I wasn't mentally prepared. It takes me a while to get into that mental kind frame of mind. That's why I wasn't mad at Steve Harvey saying all the stupid stuff he wanted done before he go on stage, and how you can't mess with him, talk to him, and do it. Da, da. because he had to get ready to mentally prepare. And that's a very taxing thing. Takes a while to be taxing and positive. I mean, it takes a lot of mental preparation to be positive when you're getting ready to perform and to be happy and put on that show. But it takes a minute to get to that state of mind to get you there where you can do your work. So I'm not, I'm not mad at Steve Harvey. I'm not mad at anybody that tells you what they got to do to get mentally prepared to go to that level. Just because you hurt feelings, you're messing with their livelihood. So do what they say they need to have done if you want the job. Now, when people are in their dressing room, that's what they're doing when they're getting ready to go on stage. And then when they're winding down, they're winding down. And if the screener or the doorman lets you back there, it's because you have told them that you really wanted to be back there and you are prepared to do what's needed. And they probably would have implied that you would be expected to have sex or something like that. And when they told them the code words to say when you went in there, because it is highly unusual for any female to ask anybody for drugs or aspirin or even tell somebody they got a headache when they first meet them. It's highly unusual, so that means that that's a code word. Nobody consistently goes up in anybody's any place telling them they got a headache and do you have something. Have you ever had a job interview where you walked in and said I had a headache? Do you have something for the person that's interviewing you? Have you ever walked into anybody's office and said I had a headache? Do you have something for me that I can take that that'll help me with my headache that you just met? Nobody does that because that's an unusual thing to do. Okay? So it means there's some kind of code or some kind of signal because that is a highly unusual thing to do. And basically, the signal means is I want to get high and I want to let nature take its course. And that implies consent. I want to get high and I want to be with you. What the hell are you there for if and getting high for if you're not wanting to let nature take its course, and that is possibly have sex or go in any direction he wants to go with you because you put yourself there. That's you fought. Not only did you put yourself there, you fought to get there because they don't let you in a dressing room without you being aggressive about getting in the dressing room. They don't let you in the dressing room unless you are aggressive about getting in the dressing room. And the people that are screening you are recognizing that you have a strong desire to be there. Okay? So that's tacit consent. And not just consent, that's aggressive desire to do it. And so whatever happened there is consensual sex. If he did anything to you, it was consensual. And so I honestly believe that he was doing whatever it was physically, but he was doing it with their permission, their tacit permission. I mean, you done laid down. It's like you're in a hotel room and you done told the man to get naked, and you done got naked and got on the bed and opened your legs and said, "Come here." Now, if he goes there and says and gets on you and humps away, that's your consent. Okay, and so the next day you decided that you retract consent. That don't make that a rape. So 40 or 50 years later, when you're retracting consent, doesn't mean that he molested you. That's why I'm saying he's innocent. You don't get to retract consent. So that's whatever the verdict is on this. This is a message for every performer, every black man, and really every man. Y'all got to get it in writing because we've got to have some new standards. You can't let yourself be led anymore, even though they're the aggressor. These women getting in your room are actually being pretty aggressive toward you. Recently there was this young man that got fired off of this TV set, TV show where the white girl got drunk and came on to him. And I'm honestly thinking he needs to file charges himself for sexual harassment. He's sitting there having a good time. Next thing you know, he's got this woman all over him. I think the men need to press charges. I think all black men need to press charges. Stop thinking, with your penises. Don't let them do that anymore. So if, regardless of the verdict, he's innocent because it's an unfair verdict if he's guilty. If they find him guilty, and it's because they desire to find him guilty, not because he was. And so with black people, we're living in is essentially in a state of terrorism because all of our actions can be switched and changed with the desire of whatever social powerful people decide it is. And it's not about money because these are rich people, not about social power because the rules change. And so this man is being railroaded about something that these women told him he could do, essentially. Now, he didn't fulfill their dreams of giving him a big old career, but still, if they finished the action and he was still in his mind that that was consensual and they have to answer honestly, and they would know that they never let him believe that it wasn't consensual, then, I mean, I'm talking about during that time, not after they got a chance to think about it and analyze it and run it by their lawyers in modern time. But during that time, I honestly believe that everything that happened was consensual. Not only consensual, but aggressively, literally demanded of him. Okay, because that don't make sense. I mean, it's stupid. And so, young modern people, if the lady ain't put it down in writing that she wants to have sex with you, don't mess with her. Y'all gotta get control. And I know that you wanna just grab it while you can and get it while it's available, but you gotta think a little bit more highly of yourself than that, and get that under control, so that they can't even construe it to mean that somebody attacked you. Because from what I understood on this TV show, the young lady came on to him, and when he responded, it became sexual molestation or something that they're saying it was, or bad sexual contact. And like if you ever anybody in their right mind ever seen any of them shows, it's always been mutual. As one initiates and one responds, and it's been both ways. So suddenly it's illegal for this guy, or a bad thing for this guy. So that's what I'm saying. Young black men, get it in writing if you do mess with anybody, and make sure that they understand the consequences, and that and really, I mean, get it in writing and understand, and get a release statement from them if you touch them. And if they do accuse you and you do get out of it, you need to sue them. For A, for suing you falsely and falsely accusing you, and B, for slandering your name. Whatever the verdict, I don't think he should let that stand, whatever it is. And there's more things I could say on that, but this is basically it. I'm basically done, and I'm disgusted because my black men keep getting themselves in trouble. And this right here with Cosby is a lesson to modern black men, that no matter what your state of life is, things can change when people change their mind about things that they said that you were welcome to do, in so many words. Okay, that's it for this. Thanks.